LSU going into Kyle Field, 2.5-point underdog, over-under here at 53.5. I got to say, how do you guys feel about the new sort of, I'm not going to call it gotcha culture, but have you seen the clip from like the Manning camp going around of Garrett Nussmeier? Somebody asked him like if Death Valley or Kyle is harder, and I'm not a huge fan of the holding onto the clips and dropping them the week up. But Damien, you played both of these spots. College Station or Death Valley harder to play?
Ubben, it's really a toss-up, and I got to give you two separate answers just because it's really, really, really hard to decide. These are two great atmospheres, two really tough places to play. I'm going to go daytime game, like that 3 p.m. slot, transitioning into nighttime. The sun's going to go down, day-to-night game. I got to go Kyle Field. Like, Aggie Land is rocking during the day. They're up and at it early, which I don't know how because they do the midnight yell, but they're already up and at it, ready to go, 3 p.m. Yeah, crazy. Chris, you got it, yeah. Crazy environment. But you talk about nighttime when the sun goes down, the lights are out, the celebrities are out. I mean, people had all day to pregame and drink and do God knows what that they do down in Louisiana. I got to go Death Valley at night. I mean, there's truly, truly nothing like it. And, maybe my experience is a little bit different because it was always like number 1 versus number 2 or number 1 versus number 3, something like that. But I would say if I had to compare the two, I would give you a 50-50 answer, and I would say daytime at Aggie Land and nighttime at Death Valley. So
I like it.
Yeah,
I feel like Kyle Field is playing with some chip on its shoulder because remember it was number 1 in college football 25, and then before the season even started, they changed it and they made LSU number 1, and then A&M loses to Notre Dame in week 1, so they've been working their way back.
Damien, what was your first interaction, the first time you became aware of or saw America's favorite milkmen, the A&M yell leaders?
I was very thrown for sure. Just because, Chris, what do they even call this? What is this called?
It's like farmers fight.
It's like farmers fight, and then there's like a hump it that they do. There's a lot.
Well, you got
of stuff that just.
Well, you got to think. You got to think about some of the dudes that I played with at Bama, right? Like some of these dudes were really about that life. You know what I'm saying? We're running on the field, and next thing you see a bunch of people that just upping it like this. You know what I'm saying? You get some crazy looks. You know what I mean? You got wholesome guys back. No, but it was definitely crazy. Like I said, Aggie Land, that culture that they have down there, those fans, the yell leaders. I don't even know what the hell they're called. Like you said, America's favorite milkman, whatever they are. It's crazy how much they pour into those games, and like the 12th man. I think that saying, that feeling that there's an extra guy, like it's real. So LSU's gonna have a tough time on the road against all the fighting Aggies they're gonna have to deal with.
Chris, when on the field, when we see these two teams play, I think people thought both these teams had some upside. I don't think we thought that the stakes would be what they seem to be in this one.
No, these two teams are atop the SEC. They are the first place teams undefeated in the SEC, which is not anything we expected coming in, especially from Texas A&M.
Yeah, especially if they lost that opener. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really good chance the winner of this game is going to the playoff. Like, not only just potentially to the SEC championship game, because LSU after this, they've got a bye, then Bama, Florida, Vandy, Oklahoma. A&M's got South Carolina bye, New Mexico State, Auburn, Texas. So, like, especially if A&M wins this game, like, you've got a path there in a way that I don't think anybody expected. So that makes this one of the biggest games of the weekend because of the stakes. This is the kind of game that in the old playoff, we may not have thought about very much. And instead, it has massive stakes for the playoff, for the SEC, and for everything. And I think this is going to be a crazy scene in College Station.
Mm-hmm. Damien, you made the Aggie Land crowd your Dame's dog of the week for this game. And right. I think the guy that they're going to be yelling at, Garrett Nussmeier, I got to tell you, so I draft him in the Athletics Heisman draft. I like what I've seen from him. I've been on board. Basically, the first time I saw him was when he came in for Jaden Daniels in the SEC championship in 22.
Yeah,
and just torched Georgia. Now, granted, Georgia's winning that game. It was not the Georgia team that was dead set on not letting them score, but it's still a really good defense. And he hadn't really played a ton. And I was like, this guy can sling it. And we've seen that this year. And I think. We were talking about this the other day. I think the best compliment I can give him, and I mean this truly as a compliment, is how robotic that he seems to be sometimes. And that he has that Tom Brady to him in the pocket where he can make subtle movements, keep his platform, keep his eyes downfield, and then just cut it loose. The problem, not to besmirch our beloved Diego Pavia, but when the pocket breaks down for him, the mechanics are going out the window. He is running. That's the former wrestler.
Full Johnny Football.
He's just running around. If you watch Garrett Nussmeier, he'll give it a little shoulder shimmy shake, duck underneath the tackle, trying to go around, step up, really good at climbing the pocket. I mean, this is what happens when you have a guy who, one, is the son of an offensive coach, and two, has been training to be a quarterback for probably his entire life. The technique that he seems to have, the composure that he seems to have, the decision making, I think that comes with experience. He's made some weird decisions. They were losing to Ole Miss in part because of some decisions that he made earlier in that game. But when they needed him, and in doing it in some tight spots late in that Ole Miss game, he was really, really impressive. And his numbers are really good. They're not crazy, but I think he may have the unofficial national lead in dimes dropped in anybody in the sport this year. He's really, really fun to watch, and I think he's going to be faced with a really, really big test. But I'm excited to see.
Yeah, and on the other side, I'm really curious what Texas A&M we get, because Connor Wegman this year has been like all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was bad at the beginning. He gets hurt. Yates comes in. It's that game. No, I'm sorry. Marcel comes in that game. They beat Florida. Wegman comes back against Missouri and lights the world on fire. Looks incredible. And then not great last week. So what are we going to get week to week with that Texas A&M offense? We don't know. And I have been saying this for a couple of weeks now. LSU's defense keeps getting better every week. In the back end, they're better. And again, without Harold Perkins, I think they have guys who kind of fit in that defense a bit better. And this was obviously such a hole for them last year. The defense was terrible, and they've just been getting better each week.
Mm-hmm. Damien, who you like in this game?
I don't know. This is tough. This is tough for me because, like Chris said, I want to know what Connor Wegman we're going to see, because I feel like if we see the Missouri Connor Wegman that came back off an injury with the chip on his shoulder, proving this is my team, Marcel Reed, you're my guy, sit on the bench because I'm still here. I'm still that guy. If we see that kind of Connor Wegman, I think that he can play well enough to defeat the Garrett Nussmeier, who is incredibly tough, who plays really, really well under pressure, but he still does make those boneheaded mistakes, some of those head scratches where we're like, WTF, bro? Like, what are you doing? You're so much better than this. Like, your mechanics are great. Like David's talking about, your feet are set. You're looking in the right place. Just deliver the ball. You're just making those silly plays. But I'm gonna go with LSU. I don't know. I think that Connor Wegman is still he's still just not quite there yet. I think he can be. Clearly, he proved that against Missouri. But if I had to just isolate the quarterback matchup and say this game is going to be won by who has the better quarterback, I would say based on what we've all seen, we got to go with Garrett Nussmeier and LSU.
I think you're going to see a home dog bark in this one. I like A&M to get this done. I mean, I don't mean this to ruffle LSU's feathers. LSU's not one of the 10 best teams in the country. They're a very good team. They're a team that is improving quite a bit, but they're not one of the 10 best teams in the country. And this A&M team, what we've seen from Mike Elko, I think, is what people thought that we were going to see in the wake of losing Jimbo. This is still a pretty talented team, but they're just aggressively competent. You watch LSU, they don't beat themselves a lot. I think it's going to be a tough spot for LSU coming in here. I like the Aggies to go and not only cover, but win this outright. Chris, what do you like?
The thing about saying they're not a top 10 team is that somebody has to be a top 10 team. And it kind of goes with the playoff. Like we're saying, is this a playoff team? Is this a top 10 team? They don't need to be compared to what you imagine a top 10 team to be. They're compared to who else is out there.
I'm just talking about teams I watch. I watch LSU. The personnel does not wow me. I think Nussmeier gives them a really, really higher floor than a lot of teams. But you watch them and you're kind of like, they can't really run the ball defensively. The personnel is not what you would note from an LSU team. I do like our guy Whit Weeks. I've fallen in love with him, but they just don't have a lot of guys. You think about the teams that LSU has had in the past. Okay, it's just not the same. And I think that you like their tackles, but Kyron Lacey's been just okay. I just think the personnel, when you look at this LSU team and other teams in the country this year, is just there's not a lot of guys that make you say wow.
No, and this is they've got a bye next week and then Bama. This is continuing a stretch of pretty big games. Can they get up for it again? But I think ultimately, both these teams have flaws. LSU can't and isn't even trying to run the ball. A&M, you never know what you're going to get at quarterback. The offensive line's kind of been in flux. I'm going to go LSU wins this one.